Before there were borders, roads, or names, there was this: a coastline veiled in mist, forests that swallowed sound, and volcanoes that rose through cloud like sleeping giants. Here, the Pacific Northwest doesn't announce itself. It whispers, with moss, with fog, with rain that's older than memory. This is a land shaped by fire and water, where rivers carve canyons through basalt, and cedar trees have stood longer than nations. A place of silence, power, and myth, where the earth is still writing itself in stone and snow. This isn't the Pacific Northwest of coffee shops and skyline views. This is the version that waits behind the mountains, the one few ever reach. The Pacific Northwest is not just a region, it's an ecosystem of extremes. Where coastlines are shattered by sea stacks and forests drink fog straight from the sky. It stretches from Northern California to British Columbia and inland across volcanic plateaus to hidden desert. In this journey, we'll climb to the summit of fireborn peaks and descend into canyons no road reaches. We'll walk through groves that predate empires and stand beside rivers whose names are older than English. This is a place where water shapes land and land shapes memory. And in the Pacific Northwest, everything remembers. This is Era Trails, and these are the wonders of the Pacific Northwest. Rising over 14,400 feet, Mount Rainier dominates the horizon of western Washington. But it's more than just a peak. It's a presence, a glacier-covered volcano so massive, it creates its own weather. Called Tahoma by local indigenous tribes, Rainier is sacred, dangerous, and alive. It holds more glacial ice than any mountain in the continental US, feeding rivers and shaping ecosystems for hundreds of miles. In summer, its meadows explode with wildflowers, lupin, Indian paintbrush, avalanche lilies, framing the white dome in living color. In winter, it disappears into cloud and silence, as if hiding from time itself. But the deeper story lies beneath the snow. Rainier is active, and someday it will erupt again. The land remembers, the forests know. To see Mount Rainier is to understand that beauty and power often share the same summit. On the western edge of Washington's Olympic Peninsula, the Hoh Rainforest lies cloaked in silence and green. One of the last temperate rainforests in the world, it receives over 140 inches of rain each year, and it shows. Moss drapes every branch. Ferns erupt from fallen logs. Trees that have stood for hundreds of years support entire ecosystems in their canopy. Here, everything grows, layer upon layer, until the forest seems to breathe. The Hoh is part of Olympic National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and Biosphere Reserve. Elk still move through its shadowed groves. Rivers run cold and glacial blue. Walk the Hall of Mosses and you'll understand. This isn't a forest. It's a cathedral made of fog and time. At the far northwest corner of the lower 48, where forest gives way to sea, lies Cape Flattery, a place that feels like the Earth's final exhale. Waves crash against basalt cliffs. Sea stacks rise from mist like forgotten towers. And the Pacific spreads endlessly west, unchanged and untamed. This is the northwesternmost point in the continental U.S., located on the Mecca Reservation, where land, sea, and sky blur into legend. The Mecca people have lived here for thousands of years, hunting whales, carving canoes, and telling stories held in the tides. Standing on the cliffs at sunset, with wind in the trees and ocean spray in the air, you don't feel like a visitor. You feel like you've arrived at the end of something ancient. Just south of Cape Flattery, the Pacific coast turns rugged and wild. At Ruby Beach, the rainforest ends in driftwood and tide pools, and the sea stacks rise like ancient monuments from the surf. Named for the garnet-colored grains sometimes found in its sand, Ruby Beach is part of Olympic National Park, where trees stretch nearly to the shoreline and fog moves through the forest like breath. It's a place of contrast, soft sand against jagged stone, crashing waves beneath towering spruce. And at low tide, the beach reveals hidden marine worlds: starfish, anemones, and barnacle-covered secrets. Ruby Beach is more than a scenic stop. It's where two worlds meet, and neither gives ground. At the southwestern tip of Washington, the Columbia River collides with the Pacific in a fog-shrouded, storm-worn headland known as Cape Disappointment, a name that belies its power. Here, the waves are restless, the air is electric, and the cliffs are topped by a lonely lighthouse that has stood watch over one of the deadliest stretches of water in North America. The Columbia Bar, where over 2,000 ships have been lost. The Cape was named by explorer John Meares in 1788, when he failed to locate the Columbia River's mouth. But the land has been known far longer by the Chinook people, whose ancestors thrived at this confluence of freshwater, ocean, and wind. Cape Disappointment is not what it seems. It's not about failure, it's about power, persistence, and arrival. Carving a line between Oregon and Washington, the Columbia River Gorge is not just a river valley. It's a volcanic canyon, wind tunnel, and waterfall kingdom all in one. Formed by ancient lava flows and shaped by the cataclysmic Missoula floods, the gorge now stretches over 80 miles, with basalt cliffs rising up to 4,000 feet above the river. From certain angles, it looks like the earth has been torn open and then overgrown with moss. The Oregon side is lush, famous for its waterfalls. Multnomah Falls, La Tourelle, Wakena, and more, each one spilling over volcanic cliffs into emerald grottos. The Washington side is drier, steeper, and quieter, home to hidden trails and ancient petroglyphs. Winds howl through the gorge year-round, drawing windsurfers and eagles alike. But in the stillness between gusts, you can hear the river moving as it always has, a pulse through the spine of the Northwest. High above the Columbia River, where basalt cliffs give way to wildflower meadows, a ribbon of pavement curves with near-perfect symmetry. This is Rowena Crest, a viewpoint, a trailhead, and one of the most photogenic roads in the Pacific Northwest. Located along the historic Columbia River Highway, Rowena's famous horseshoe curve twists through the Tom McCall Preserve, a protected plateau that bursts into color every spring. Balsamroot, lupin, and paintbrush turn the hillsides golden and violet, while hawks circle overhead and the wind hums through dry grass. From the crest, the river narrows between Black Canyon walls, and the horizon stretches deep into eastern Oregon's rolling hills. It's a rare place where you can feel the transition between ecosystems, from rainforest to grassland, moisture to dryness, west to east. Rowena Crest is both a view and a threshold, a pause before the landscape changes direction, a place where the Pacific Northwest shows its grace in motion. In the remote stretches of central Oregon, the trees vanish, the sky expands, and the ground begins to glow. This is the Painted Hills, a part of the John Day Fossil Beds National Monument, and one of the most surreal landscapes in the Pacific Northwest. Here, the soil is streaked with ancient color: red, gold, black, ochre, each layer a chapter in Earth's history. These bands of claystone were formed over millions of years, shaped by climate shifts, volcanic ash, and the slow decay of ancient plants. The colors change with light and season: rust in summer, crimson after rain, gold in late sun. But despite the beauty, the land feels delicate. Trails are few. Stepping off them is forbidden. The past here is visible but fragile. In a region known for green and rain, the Painted Hills remind us that the Northwest also holds deserts, fossils, and silence. This isn't just scenery. It's a window into Earth before memory. Scattered across central Oregon are 3 distinct units of the John Day Fossil Beds National Monument. Places where millions of years of life are preserved not in museums, but in the hills themselves. In the Sheep Rock unit, colorful cliffs hold the bones of saber-toothed cats, ancient rhinos, and tiny ancestors of modern horses. At Blue Basin, eroded walls of pale green clay rise like the ruins of a forgotten city, shaped by water and silence. Further west, the Clarno unit reveals fossilized logs and leaf imprints from a subtropical jungle that once thrived here, when Oregon looked more like modern-day Costa Rica. Together, these sites make up one of the most complete fossil records of the Cenozoic era, spanning over 40 million years of Earth's evolutionary history. There's no roar here, no spectacle, just stone, wind, and deep time. The John Day Fossil Beds don't ask for attention. They offer context for everything alive today. Tucked deep within the Sheep Rock unit of the John Day Fossil Beds, Blue Basin rises like a mirage. Its pale green walls, formed from ancient volcanic ash, stand cracked and eroded, forming labyrinthine canyons and jagged spires that glow turquoise in the right light. Walking into Blue Basin feels like stepping into another world. The silence is total. The path winds through tight passages, past dry streambeds and stone fins, with the basin walls rising like the bones of a forgotten civilization. This clay once buried a lush, ancient world. Hidden within these walls are the fossils of prehistoric camels, tiny horses, turtles, and saber-toothed predators. Frozen in the moment, the land changed forever. Blue Basin is not loud, is not wide, is a pocket of geologic memory. And in its stillness, it holds stories too old for language, just stone and shadow and time. Rising sharply from Oregon's dry heartland, Sheep Rock is more than a peak. It's a vertical archive of Earth's memory. Layered in shifting hues of blue, green, tan, and red, its face reads like the chapters of 30 million years, exposed by wind and time. Part of the Sheep Rock unit in the John Day Fossil Beds, the rock sits near the confluence of rivers that once watered subtropical forests filled with crocodiles, elephants, and creatures long vanished. Fossils found here helped reshape our understanding of mammalian evolution. At its base lies the Thomas Condon Paleontology Center, where real fossils are still being studied and displayed, many collected from the very layers just above. Outside, trails lead past eroded palisades and ripple-marked stone, while golden eagles ride thermals above. Sheep Rock isn't loud or towering, but it's dense with knowledge. A mountain that doesn't just stand, it remembers. High in the Cascades of southern Oregon lies a lake so deep, so blue, and so silent, it feels like it was placed, not formed. This is Crater Lake, the deepest lake in the United States and one of the clearest on Earth. It was born from violence. Around 7,700 years ago, Mount Mazama erupted with unimaginable force. The volcano collapsed, leaving behind a vast caldera, which slowly filled with snowmelt and rain. No rivers flow in or out. The result is a body of water so pure, it reflects the sky like a mirror held by stone. At its center floats Wizard Island, a cinder cone born from later eruptions. Around its rim, cliffs rise nearly 2,000 feet, dusted in snow through much of the year. On clear days, the lake glows an electric blue, and on still days, it holds the sky itself. For the Klamath tribes, this place is sacred, a site of legend, spirit, and reverence. To geologists, it's a marvel of collapse and creation. To visitors, it feels like a world within a world, untouched, cold, and impossibly still. Along Oregon's central coast, where the Pacific crashes against ancient basalt, rises Cape Perpetua, a rugged headland where sea and forest collide in a constant, roaring dialogue. From its forested summit, you can see 70 miles of coastline, with waves pounding the rocks hundreds of feet below. But it's the tide zone that draws people in. Here lies Thor's Well, a natural sinkhole where the sea seems to vanish into the earth, and Spouting Horn, where waves explode upward through lava tubes with geyser-like force. The Cape was formed by ancient lava flows, cooled by ocean wind and now covered in Sitka spruce and coastal mist. Trails wind through temperate rainforest, tidipools sparkle with sea stars and anemones, and gray whales can often be seen offshore. Cape Perpetua is not just a viewpoint, it's a collision point where land ends and chaos begins, a place where the Pacific writes in thunder. Stretching for nearly 50 miles along the central Oregon coast, the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area is one of the largest temperate coastal dune systems in the world. Here, sandhills rise over 500 feet high, sculpted by wind, rain, and time. Unlike typical deserts, these dunes border dense forest. Towering Douglas firs stand just beyond the sand, creating a surreal boundary where ecosystem meets illusion. Some dunes are active, drifting slowly eastward each year, while others have been stabilized by grass and tree islands. It's a place of motion and silence, one where you can hike across wind-rippled crests, discover freshwater lakes hidden between sand folds, or simply sit and listen to the soft hiss of moving earth. Few expect to find a desert here, much less one so vast. But that's the nature of the Pacific Northwest. It holds surprises between every forest and tide. On the far northern edge of California's coast, mist rolls inland through a cathedral of trees. Redwoods, some over 370 feet tall, older than the Roman Empire and still growing. In Redwood National and State Parks, the forest is more than just tall, it's deep. Fern-covered canyons, fog-filtered light, and the sound of dripping water create a world that feels untouched, even eternal. Trails like Fern Canyon, with its moss-covered walls, have the stillness of a natural temple. Redwoods grow only in this narrow coastal strip of the Pacific Northwest, where moisture from the sea feeds them year-round. Many are over 2,000 years old, their bark fire-resistant, their roots interwoven underground like a community. Walking here is humbling. These aren't just trees. They're pillars of time, stretching quietly between earth and sky. In Northern California, where pine forests stretch for miles and rivers begin in snowmelt, one mountain rises so high, so suddenly, it feels like it doesn't belong to this world. This is Mount Shasta, a 14,179-foot stratovolcano wrapped in myth, snow, and silence. Visible for over 100 miles on a clear day, Shasta dominates the landscape, but it also dominates the imagination. Indigenous tribes like the Wintu and Shasta peoples consider it sacred, the center of origin and spirit. Others speak of lost cities, hidden civilizations, and strange lights in its upper reaches. Geologically, it's part of the Cascade Range, like Rainier and Hood, formed by subduction and still considered potentially active. But it feels different, more remote, more spiritual, less touched by time. Snow-fed springs flow from its base. Lava tubes thread beneath its slopes. And climbers who reach the summit often speak of a hush, a stillness that feels older than weather. Mount Shasta isn't just a peak. It's a presence, watching over the northern range with a gaze that never blinks. In the shadow of Mount Shasta, another volcano tells a different story, not quiet, but restless. This is Lassen Volcanic National Park, where boiling springs, steaming fumaroles, and fractured peaks reveal that fire still sleeps just below. In 1915, Mount Lassen erupted, sending ash across hundreds of miles and carving out new hydrothermal features overnight. Today, visitors can hike to the summit of the peak and gaze down into its fractured crater, or descend into Bumpass Hell, a geyser basin where the ground hisses, bubbles, and reeks of sulfur. Unlike other Cascade peaks, Lassen is a volcanic laboratory, showcasing all four types of volcano: shield, cinder cone, composite, and plug dome, all within one national park. Amid the geothermal chaos, beauty persists. Alpine lakes, wildflower meadows, and quiet forests fill the space between vents and craters. Lassen is the Yellowstone of the West Coast, but with fewer people and more mystery. A reminder that, in the Pacific Northwest, the ground may look calm, but it's rarely at peace. On May 18, 1980, the north face of Mount St. Helens collapsed in the largest landslide in recorded history, followed by a cataclysmic eruption that flattened forests, choked rivers, and darkened skies across the Pacific Northwest. Today, what remains is not ruin, but rebirth. The mountain still stands, shorter, reshaped, and still active. Its horseshoe-shaped crater smolders with occasional steam. Inside, a new lava dome grows, slowly rebuilding what was lost. Around the blast zone, life has returned in layers. Lupin, fir trees, elk, and birds have recolonized the land, showing how quickly nature heals, even after fire, ash, and silence. Standing at Johnston Ridge, facing the open crater, you feel the scale of it. The quiet, the force, and the reminder that the land here is not finished, it's becoming. Mount St. Helens doesn't just belong to geology. It belongs to memory, to story, and to the future of everything it still holds beneath its skin. Tucked away in northern Washington, near the Canadian border, lies one of the most rugged and remote national parks in the U.S., North Cascades National Park. Few roads enter it, fewer people know it, but its peaks rival the Alps, and its silence goes deeper. Over 300 glaciers carve the landscape, more than anywhere else in the lower 48. Craggy summits like Mount Shuksan and Mount Triumph rise above turquoise lakes and alpine valleys where no engines echo, just wind, waterfalls, and time. The region is a crossroads of ecosystems. Moss-draped temperate forests rise into granite spires, while rivers like the Skagit and Stehekin cut through valleys shaped by ancient ice. For the indigenous Upper Skagit and Nooksack peoples, these peaks have long been sacred places of medicine, story, and deep connection. Even today, the North Cascades remain unsubdued, a place where wildness still reigns. It's not just a park, it's a frontier, one of the last, and it reminds us what untouched really means. In the coast mountains of British Columbia, near the town of Pemberton, a trail rises steeply through fir forests, leading to a trio of glacial lakes so blue they seem lit from within. This is Joffre Lakes Provincial Park, where ice feeds color and silence sharpens everything. Each lake, lower, middle, and upper, gets bluer as you climb, the water tinted by fine glacial silt that refracts sunlight. Towering above is Meteor Glacier, spilling off the peaks like frozen breath. Its meltwater fills the lakes. Their turquoise glows strongest when the sun hits just right. Hiking here is no secret. Crowds come, but the landscape swallows noise. Along the way, waterfalls, moraine fields, and icy pools remind you this isn't just beauty. It's mountain geology in motion. To the indigenous Lil'wat Nation, this land is part of a much older trail network, pathways of trade, spirit, and survival. Today, Joffre remains both a destination and a threshold, a place where cold water meets warm awe. Off the northwest coast of British Columbia lies an isolated chain of forested islands, once known as the Queen Charlotte Islands, today returned to their ancestral name, Haida Gwaii, the homeland of the Haida Nation. These islands are often called the Galapagos of the North for their unique species, shaped by isolation and time. But what sets Haida Gwaii apart isn't just ecology, it's legacy. The Haida people have lived here for over 12,000 years, their history carved into towering cedar totems, longhouses, and oral tradition. In places like Gwaii, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, moss-covered totems stand by the sea, faces weathered by rain, yet still watching. The forests are dense, ancient, and untouched. The shorelines are home to eagles, sea lions, and whales. Haida Gwaii is not a tourist stop. It's a cultural realm, a sacred geography. A place where the Pacific Northwest isn't just wild, it's alive with story. To walk here is to understand the land as ancestor, teacher, and keeper of time. Just north of Vancouver, tucked behind the coastal skyline, lies Garibaldi Provincial Park, a wilderness of glacial lakes, black volcanic spires, and alpine silence. At its heart is Garibaldi Lake, a turquoise basin held in place by a lava dam from a long-ago eruption. Above it looms Mount Garibaldi, a stratovolcano still sculpted by shifting ice, and the Table, a rare flat-topped volcanic formation called a tuya, created when lava erupted beneath thick glacial ice. Trails lead through meadows and scree fields to hanging glaciers, turquoise tarns, and panoramic ridgelines that seem untouched by modern time. In summer, the fields explode with wildflowers. In winter, it becomes a world of frost and white silence. This is not a national park, yet it feels wilder than many that are. There are no roads into its center, only footpaths, ridgelines, and the sound of water carving through stone. Garibaldi is where fire, ice, and altitude meet and hold a truce. Along the rugged northern coast of British Columbia lies a land so vast, so primal, and so untouched that it's hard to believe it still exists. This is the Great Bear Rainforest, a 6.4 million hectare wilderness of old-growth cedar, fjords, glacial rivers, and mist-drenched islands. Protected by indigenous stewardship and global conservation efforts, it is home to one of the world's rarest animals, the Kermode bear, also known as the spirit bear, a white-furred black bear that exists nowhere else. Salmon run through icy creeks. Wolves and eagles share the valleys. Whales move through the fjords below. The Heiltsuk, Katasu/Zizes, Gikaat, and other First Nations have lived here for thousands of years, their traditions and stories woven into every tide and trail. To them, this is not just nature, it's lineage. In the Great Bear Rainforest, there are no highways, no cities, no overexposed overlooks, only silence, rain, and forest older than memory. It's not just a wonder, it's a living world that still says no. Cut deep into the Cascade Mountains, Lake Chelan is a glacial ribbon of water stretching over 50 miles, bordered by cliffs, forests, and remote wilderness that most visitors never see. Formed by retreating glaciers and ancient floodwaters, it's one of the deepest lakes in North America, plunging over 1,400 feet near its center. The lower end buzzes with summer towns, but at the upper tip lies Stehekin, a village with no roads, no cars, and no connection to the outside world except by water or air. Granite peaks rise straight from the shoreline. Waterfalls tumble into the lake's mirrored surface. And around it all, the alpine silence is so pure, it feels like you're hearing the echo of the Pacific Northwest itself. Lake Chelan isn't about escape, it's about return. A return to wild water, steep stone, and sky that still holds space for silence. The Pacific Northwest is not just a direction, it's a force, a region carved by fire, shaped by rain, and softened by time. These mountains don't just rise, they listen. These forests don't grow. They remember, from glaciers to ghost towns, tidal-pools to lava beds, spirit bears to steaming craters. This land is not defined by borders, but by breath. It is where rivers write history, where volcanoes whisper under snow, and where rainforests stretch so far they forget the sun. You can't see it all from the road. You can't understand it in a weekend. But once you've walked beneath these trees, climbed these peaks, or stood beside water older than names, you carry it with you. If this journey revealed something new, or reminded you of something long forgotten, subscribe to Era Trails to keep traveling through the wild, the sacred, and the unseen. And share this with someone who still thinks the Pacific Northwest is just coffee shops and fog, because out here, fog has teeth and mountains still speak.